The judge smirked, leaning back in his chair as he scoffed at the black lawyer standing before him. His voice dripped with condescension as he mocked the man's qualifications, even cracking a joke that sent quiet chuckles through the courtroom. But then, just as the lawyer calmly reached into his pocket and pulled out his badge, the judge's expression froze, his face draining of all color. What happened next silenced the entire room, leaving everyone in stunned disbelief. But let's start from the beginning. The oak-paneled courtroom was alive with murmurs, the air thick with an undercurrent of tension. A high-profile case had drawn a sizable crowd, eager to witness what was sure to be a spectacle. Judge Theodore Holloway, a man in his 60s with a permanent scowl carved into his wrinkled face, sat atop his mahogany throne, his gavel resting idly in his right hand. Across the room stood Jordan Carter, a sharply dressed black attorney in his mid-40s. His custom-tailored navy blue suit, crisp white shirt, and burgundy tie were impeccable, exuding the quiet confidence of a seasoned professional. Yet, despite his commanding presence, Judge Holloway barely concealed his disdain. The way his lips curled into a sneer and his fingers tapped impatiently against the desk made it clear. He didn't believe Jordan belonged here. "This should be amusing," the judge muttered under his breath, though just loud enough for the jury and courtroom attendees to hear. He leaned forward with an exaggerated sigh, glancing at his watch. "Let's get this over with, Mr. Carter. Try not to waste our time." A few snickers echoed through the courtroom. Jordan, unfazed, adjusted his cufflinks and strode confidently toward the bench, his deep brown eyes locked onto the judge's. "Your Honor, with all due respect, the only waste of time is allowing prejudice to cloud the proceedings of justice." The judge scoffed, rolling his eyes. "Prejudice? You have quite the imagination. Or is that just an excuse for incompetence?" Laughter erupted from a section of the courtroom. Jordan clenched his jaw but maintained his composure. He had faced ignorance before. This was nothing new. What was new, however, was the judge's audacity to publicly humiliate him in such an official setting. "You may continue with your little speech, counselor," Judge Holloway said, dismissively waving his hand. "Just remember, the law is not about theatrics. Maybe in whatever community center mock trials you've practiced, they let you grandstand. But in my courtroom, we value real lawyers." Silence fell over the room. Even those who had laughed earlier now looked uncomfortable. The jab was deliberate, racist, and now all eyes were on Jordan. The courtroom's murmurs returned, this time laced with whispers of disapproval. Jordan inhaled slowly, steadying himself. He had learned long ago that losing his temper in the face of bigotry only gave the other side more power. Instead, he straightened his shoulders and pulled out a neatly organized folder, flipping it open with precision. "Your Honor," Jordan began, his voice unwavering, "I was under the impression that this courtroom upheld the principles of justice and equality. I assumed professionalism would be the standard rather than playground insults." Judge Holloway's face reddened. "Watch yourself, counselor." "Oh, I am watching," Jordan replied coolly. "And so is everyone else in this courtroom." The judge opened his mouth to retort, but Jordan didn't give him the chance. With the same measured composure, he pulled out a small leather-bound identification case from his inner pocket and flipped it open, revealing the unmistakable golden emblem inside. The room collectively inhaled. "United States Attorney General." A beat of silence. Then two. The color drained from the judge's face so quickly it was almost comical. His once arrogant smirk dissolved into a look of pure horror. Jordan let the badge rest on the judge's bench for a long moment, ensuring every soul in the courtroom saw it. Then he retrieved it, sliding it back into his pocket with deliberate ease. "Judge Holloway," he said, his voice now even lower, more deliberate. I am not just some lawyer. I am the highest-ranking legal official in the United States, and I do not take kindly to the abuse of power, especially not in a courtroom that is supposed to uphold justice. The murmurs in the courtroom turned into a full-blown stir. Someone gasped audibly. The smirk that once curled the judge's lips was gone, replaced by a growing look of panic. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Jordan took a step closer, his eyes locked onto the judge's. "You see, Your Honor," he continued, "this case wasn't just about the defendant. This was about you. About whether this courtroom serves the law or serves your personal biases." Holloway visibly swallowed, gripping the armrests of his seat as if they were the only things keeping him from collapsing. His arrogance had blinded him, and now reality had come crashing down. The tension in the room had reached its breaking point. Judge Holloway shifted uncomfortably, his hands trembling as he struggled to regain control. But it was too late. The balance of power had shifted, and Jordan wasn't about to let it go unnoticed. "Effective immediately," Jordan announced, turning his attention to the court clerk. "I am ordering an official judicial review into the conduct of Judge Theodore Holloway." Gasps rippled through the room. The clerk, clearly rattled, hesitated before nodding, frantically typing on her computer. The judge's gavel slipped from his grip, clattering onto the bench. "Wait," he finally stammered, his voice shaky. "There's no need for that, Attorney General Carter. This is a misunderstanding." Jordan tilted his head. "A misunderstanding?" He took a step forward, his presence filling the room. "Tell me, Your Honor, was it a misunderstanding when you tried to humiliate me in front of this court? When you dismissed me not for my qualifications, but for the color of my skin?" Holloway had no answer. "This is what happens when arrogance meets accountability," Jordan said, his voice steady. "This courtroom doesn't belong to you. It belongs to justice, and justice demands consequences." The crowd erupted into a low murmur as reporters, who had remained silent throughout the proceedings, began frantically scribbling notes. Cameras clicked, capturing every moment of the judge's unraveling. "Bailiff," Jordan commanded, turning his gaze to the uniformed officer standing near the door. "Escort the judge from the bench." The bailiff hesitated. "Sir?" "You heard me." A long silence followed. Then, reluctantly, the bailiff nodded and moved toward the judge, who had now gone completely pale. "This is absurd," Holloway spat, but there was no fire left in his voice, no authority. "You can't do this." "I already have." The courtroom watched in stunned silence as the bailiff gently took the judge's arm and guided him from the bench. The gavel that once symbolized his power remained untouched on the desk, forgotten. As the doors swung shut behind Holloway, Jordan exhaled. Then, for the first time since the trial began, he allowed himself a small smile. Justice had been served. Final impact. The case proceeded without incident, with a new, impartial judge overseeing the remaining proceedings. Within weeks, Judge Holloway was formally removed from his position following the judicial review. His name became synonymous with disgrace, while Jordan Carter's reputation only soared higher. His unwavering stand against injustice sent shockwaves across the legal world, proving that no one, not even a judge, was above the law. And for those watching, it was a reminder that true power lies not in a title, but in the courage to fight for what's right.